Good morning all. So firstly, I just want to apologise if the background noise is interfering with the quality of this video today, because it's absolutely weighing it down outside and I can hear it on the roof, and I'm not sure how much that's going to interfere with how well you can hear me today. Okay, so if the quality is not good enough, please make a comment on the video, let me know, and I will endeavour to re-record and reinforce the information on another day when the heavens aren't streaming down onto the roof of the gym. Okay, so today's topic is emotional eating, and before we start really talking about that and any strategies for managing that, I want to make it clear that there's two paths we can take here. So for me, emotional eating is something that you do when you feel emotional. So if you eat when you feel happy or sad or angry or frustrated, if you feel an emotion and then reach for the cupboard or the ice cream or whatever it is that your personal kind of comfort food is, that is really what I'm talking about today. The other type of emotional eating is emotional binge eating, okay, and that is something slightly different. They both stem from feeling emotional and then using food as a crutch, essentially. But today, and also everything I talk about today will be relevant to both things. But emotional binge eating and binge eating disorder, that is a medical condition, and that is something that if you think that you're struggling with this, please come and talk to me first. But it may be that we need to signpost you on to someone who is more of a specialist in that area, so that so you can get the help that you need to overcome that. Okay, so full disclosure, that is what I used to have. That's what I used to do. I used to be an emotional binge eater. I was never diagnosed. I never asked anyone for any help. I just realised on my own that things needed to change, and then through many years of struggling, many years of listening to audiobooks and reading books and relapsing over and over again, I finally reached a point where I was able to get ahead. Okay, so if you are struggling with an emotional eating disorder, binge eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia, anything like that, even if you're not sure whether it's at that level, please, if you feel comfortable, if you feel ready to address it, if you feel ready to make some changes, please do come and talk to me. We'll talk it through first, and if I think you need some extra help, I will signpost you to someone else who might be able to give you that extra level of support. Okay, so we need to take it very seriously, because whether it's just a little bit of extra ice cream or an extra cookie or an extra bit of chocolate, or whether it is more severe and you're eating packets and packets of food, both of those things are putting your body in a situation where you're taking in too much food, too many calories, and even if you're not gaining weight, it still has an impact on your health and your well-being, and also the way that you feel about yourself. The emotions that we associate typically with overeating are things like guilt, shame, frustration, denial, anger, kind of pointed at ourselves. We hear the rain again. It's crazy. I'm glad I got inside before this happened. But yeah, so those emotions, those things that we feel, emotions drive this. It's emotional eating. We feel emotional and then we either treat ourselves or punish ourselves with food, or in some cases drink, and then we feel more emotions after, which are typically worse than the emotions we felt before, because guilt and shame and regret are really powerful and really negative when it comes to actually trying to make positive progress in your health and your well-being. Okay, so the underlying message of this entire video, and if I make any more of these videos, it would always be the same, is that you need to talk about it with somebody. Okay, it's whether you're eating secretly or whether you're doing it with a partner. Sometimes we can get into habits with our partners or our spouses, our family, where we binge eat as a family, and we need to recognize that overeating at any level is not good for our health. Okay, it puts our bodies in a position where it gets a little bit stressed. We might gain weight, we might gain body fat, And that's ultimately the least of our worries. If you're continuously putting extra food in, then you're putting extra stress on your digestive system, your immune system. All your systems are having to work harder to keep you at a kind of comfortable and safe body composition, okay? And obviously you will reach a point where your body can't do that anymore, and you risk moving toward things like diabetes or any of the health contraindications that are linked to gaining weight. Okay, so that kind of the health and the medical things aside, we need to. If you're in a position right now where you want things to change, and coming from someone who has been there, I've done this, I've relapsed 100 times, I've told myself it will be the last time that I do it, and again, I'm referring more to binge eating for myself because that's what I used to do, but equally this again is relevant to whether you're just eating a little bit too much or whether you are binge eating. The whole spectrum, it is relevant, okay? But I've relapsed 100, 200, 300 times, telling myself that I'm going to stop, that this will be the last time, that I'll never disrespect my body again. I'll never do it again because I just feel terrible. And then you find yourself there again, within a couple of days, or even sometimes a couple of hours, because what this stems from is a complete lack of self-esteem, okay? Self-esteem, self-love, and self-respect. And it's not to make you feel bad about that, okay? This is something that comes from possibly back in our childhoods, or it could be something that happened to us throughout our lives, or it could be a series of small things that built up over time so that it kind of chipped away at our confidence, at our self-esteem, and we reach a point where we just don't value ourselves. We even our kind of internal self-talk is quite negative, and we might be outwardly confident people. We might be kind of able to help other people. We might be logically able to see a path. And I was always very capable of taking someone else and fixing them, and I was there in the background going, I need some help. Someone come and help me. And luckily I managed to do it for myself, but I think I would have been able to knock it on the head a lot sooner if I'd have reached out and talked to somebody and admitted what I was going through. And it took me until I found my business mentor maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It took me until I found him and learned his processes, because he had been through drug addictions and alcohol addictions, and all kinds of problems like that, and he constantly was kind of laying himself bare and saying, look guys, I've been here, I've done this, and I know how hard it is. I know that it's a reliance, it's a dependence, it's a coping mechanism, it's something that you do to make yourself feel better when you feel like crap, okay? And it's something that you've learned to do over time. It's something that is ingrained in your physiology, your biology, in your mind. It's a natural, not natural, what I mean is a habitual process that you do now because you've trained your body and your brain to expect that when you feel sad, okay? So fundamentally, emotional eating is just a habit. It's a habit that you have. It may feel automatic. There was times when I was binge eating where I just felt like I'd been compelled. I'd been compelled to walk to the shop, buy packets and packets and packets of food and just sit there and eat them. And half of my brain was sat there going, you don't want to do this. It's not the right thing to do. You coach people, you're a trainer, you can't do this. And then the other half of your brain is going, I don't care. I really don't care. I want to do it. The control doesn't feel like it's there, but what you have to realise is that you are in control, okay? All that's happening is that you've just trained this process to an automatic level. So if we go to basic skill acquisition, which is something that you learn very early on, even in physical education at school, skill acquisition, you start learning something. For example, say if I started learning, I started learning to play the guitar a few years ago. When I first started playing, I had ham hands, I couldn't make them do what I wanted to do. I couldn't bend my hand around the neck of the guitar. I couldn't pluck the strings. It was like, woo! if I wanted to pluck one string, all 6 strings would go. So you know what I mean? You don't have the motor control to do what you're trying to do. Even though in your brain you know what you're meant to do, you don't have the physical skill to do it yet. And through practice, through reinforcement, through repetition, we learn to do that, and I can play the guitar fairly well now. So skill acquisition happens like that, and it's the same with habits. We do something once, it feels hard, it doesn't feel natural, we practice it, we reinforce it, we repeat it over and over again, and it becomes automatic. If you asked me to sit down now and play a song on the guitar, I wouldn't have any trouble, okay? It might not sound amazing, I'm not an amazing guitar player, but I can do it, and it is more natural and automatic now. So that is what essentially we've done with our emotional eating habits. We have recognized a stimulus, and then we have we've reinforced a response of our choice. Okay, so for example, I used to do it most of all when I felt like when I was failing. And on reflection, I must have felt like I was failing all the time because I was doing it all the time, which is it's kind of a sad reality to look back at that version of myself, because I was too scared to ask for help. I was too ashamed. I felt guilty all the time. I felt like I was failing. I felt like I had no one to turn to, even though that wasn't necessarily true. I had plenty of people that would have helped me if I was brave enough to reach out and ask. And I understand that it's an incredibly embarrassing thing to talk about, because you feel like you should be able to have it under control. You feel like you should be able to stop, but you just can't. And that is something that you tell yourself, and that is, you isolate yourself, you bring it all inside yourself, and you allow other people to just make assumptions about you, and essentially not allow your best friends or your coaches or your family the kind of the right to help you, because that's all they want to do. It might feel scary, it might feel intimidating, it might feel embarrassing, you might feel ashamed. But if you carry on doing this, if you carry on binge eating or overeating or secret eating, then you're going to end up in a worse and worse position, okay? Emotional eating, no matter where you are on the scale, is something that we need to knock on the head. And, it's in our culture, food has become this thing that we kind of idealize. We treat ourselves with food. We can't just go out and sit in a coffee shop and have a peppermint tea anymore. We have to have a coffee and a cake because it's a treat. I constantly hear the phrase, "Oh, it's my treat day. I'm treating myself. I deserve it. I've earned it." And if we can move ourselves away from this association with food, because essentially that is still emotional eating. If you are treating yourself with food, the emotion that you feel is that you've earned it, that you're happy with yourself, that that you're proud of yourself, and therefore you deserve this food. That is still emotional eating. Okay, so first of all we need to recognize where we're doing it. Okay, the biggest one that I hear is that, well, I'm on holiday, I deserve it. I'll get back on the wagon when I get home. And it's, when it comes to your health, your well-being, your body composition, your commitment to these things cannot stop if you go to a birthday party or a wedding or on holiday. When I went to Bulgaria, when I went to Center Parcs, I didn't stop being me. I didn't stop being healthy. Yeah, I might have eaten a bit more than I would normally do. I might have eaten out more than I would normally do. But I never justified it by saying, well, I'm on holiday, so I'm going to. It just came about opportunistically, in that sometimes I was a bit hungrier, we were quite active, and therefore I felt that I could justify having a bit more food. It wasn't for me. I've worked so hard on this because I know how slippery the slope is, in terms of, if I'd have justified emotionally having more food, then that's a slippery slope back into me being a binge eater. Because if you look at the literature and read the books and listen to the audio stuff on binge eating, I don't know that you can ever be cured. If you have done it for, I did it for years. I did it for 20 years maybe. Since the age of, maybe not 20 years, but since the age of 10. That's the earliest I can remember. Maybe earlier than that. But the age of 10, I remember being at primary school and eating a whole plate of cakes at one of the school fetes. I don't know why I did it. I just wanted to, and therefore I did. And that's the earliest memory I have, sadly, of my life. I remember binge eating at the age of 10 at school. And then it just carried on from there. So what we need to do first of all is, if you're a binge eater, really trying to recognize where it started and why it started is important. And then we need to identify what our triggers are now as well. So what is it that we feel when we do it? And I'm not saying that you need to stop doing it right now. Okay, that's, we can't just click our fingers and stop doing it, because we need to understand more about it first. Again, whether you're just emotional eating in terms of an extra bit of dessert, or whether you're fully into the binge eating disorder end of the scale, we need to identify what is triggering us off. What are those emotions? Start to create a map of what you're doing and why you're doing it, so that you can work backwards, like we do with all of our habit change work, all of our mindset work. What's the very first thing that causes the trigger to create the action to happen? Because if we know that, we can start to tweak around and change the habitual process. If we don't know the trigger, then we're just kind of essentially messing around and running around with our eyes closed, because we can't change the end point if we don't know the beginning point. Okay, so that is the first point of action today. Is spend the next week or so identifying firstly how you feel, and then how you respond to how you feel. So make a list of emotions. When I feel happy, I go and get a biscuit. When I feel sad, I go and get the ice cream. And this is not something that you can do consciously. You need to do this as and when it happens. Okay, so this might take more than a week. It might take a few weeks, a few months to really map it all out and understand it. But start this process today and start recognizing what the emotions are. Start identifying them. Start being honest with yourself and recognizing the connection between what you're feeling and what you then choose to do. I know it doesn't always feel like a choice, because you have automated it in your lifestyle, but recognize it as a choice, and again, start to change your mindset around. Recognize the emotion, recognize the action, create the map, and then bring the map to me. Okay, if you have the map, we can start working on reversing it and creating a new set of habits, a new set of commands essentially in your mind to reinforce newer and better habits that serve your health goals better. Okay, so that is the end of the video today. I think that's kind of covered enough of an introduction into emotional eating. If you have any questions, I realise that you might not want to put them on publicly in the comments below. So if you have any questions, please send them through individually to me. Text them, WhatsApp, email, whatever you need to do. Get them over to me, and I will follow this video up with a Q&A if we've got enough questions, or I will just make another video where I'm talking like this and kind of explaining it, and again just reinforcing what you need to do to start the process of changing your habits and getting yourself into a better place. Okay, thanks so much for your time today. Please be brave enough to reach out and tell me what's going on. If you don't reach out and tell me, I can't help you. And if you can do it on your own, then I commend you so much, and I really respect that. But if you want some extra help, I'm here if you want to talk.